But if you want to come over onto the ownership side, where you got to build everything from scratch, is it going to be hard? It's going to be a lots of uncertainty. It's going to be lots of things you got to figure out. But with all those things you got to do, internalize and don't forget that the easiest way to eat an elephant is a bite at a time. And to quote Nelson Mandela, everything seems impossible until it is finished.
Welcome to Behind the Work, the show where we focus on all things leveling up, glowing up, and becoming our best selves. I'm your host, Jessica Santana, and I'm bringing you the tips, tricks, and strategies that help us reach our highest potential. So, whether you're working at a company, building your business, or you're just trying to level up, this is for you. At Behind the Work, we believe that we all have to go up together, so make sure you're tapped in. Today, we have the great pleasure of talking with Justin Samuels, who is the founder and CEO of Render ATL, one of the largest multicultural technology conferences that emphasizes culture as being one of the underpinnings of successful technology companies and employee workplace satisfaction. Listed as a 2025 Black Enterprise 40 Under 40, Justin has been paving the way for underestimated groups in tech since the start of his career, and I'm excited to connect with him for the show. So, Justin, welcome to Behind the Work.
Well, thank you so much for having me out today. I really appreciate that long introduction. It's crazy. I sometimes you forget everything that you've achieved until you hear other people talk about it. So thank you for that great reminder that we're on the path each and every day to just building something great.
Oh, of course, of course. And I really appreciate you making the time. I always say that the world is small, even though it feels like it's huge. And I know that obviously you and I share some mutual connections.
Mhm.
And I think that forums like this are really important for us to be able to tell our stories and share, all of our learnings with the world. It's not every day that we get to operate in the spaces that we operate in. And so thanks for making the time.
Of
Um,
course, of
yeah.
course.
So I always start off with trying to get to know people and their origin story, right? Because like a lot of the professional stuff you can Google, you can Google. I mean, maybe you can even chat GPT it these days, right?
Yep.
And so I'd love to start with like, who is Justin? Where's he from? What was little Justin's dreams, and who is he today?
Yeah. So I'm born and raised in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Lived there for about 12 to 13 years. While I was raised in Bridgeport, a lot of my fundamental upbringing for computers began around that time period too, where I'm a big proponent in exposure. Exposure creates opportunity. Where I was exposed at an early age, no older than 5, to the not the internet, but to just computing in general. Where I had a Macintosh as my first PC, and not the Macintosh that you think of. Like I hear people all the time say, like the iMac with the big blue back, or the iMac with the big red back, and the answer is no. I had the Macintosh, which was your square looking, a yellowish tint, a CRT looking personal computer with the tricolor Apple logo on it. Those who know what I'm talking about can quickly see where I'm going. Where we use quarter of an inch floppy disk to play games and whatnot. And one of the first games I played was the Oregon Trail. I played that thing until you couldn't cross the river anymore. And with that early exposure, unbeknownst to me, I was learning how to interact with a new type of technology that's going to change our humans. At the time, the personal computer was just a hobbyist thing. So I just happened to have one because my dad was your classic Sanford and a son, where he would just go around and just collect random shit, and he just happened to collect a Macintosh. I don't know how, but it happened, and I learned to type on that thing. I learned how to interact with the terminal. I learned how to play games. I learned how to use a mouse, all because of just being exposed early. So as time went going on, I asked my older sister and my family for other things in a tech, which was, hey, can I have my own newer computer? I had a gateway. For those who know, that's a Dia Funk brand now. I had a gateway, a PC, had a gateway laptop. I had a Dell laptop, which is just out of a curiosity too. Is the people at home going to be able to watch this, or can you only hear this? By the way,
They can watch this.
oh, perfect. The reason why I ask is because behind me, I actually have my first a PC. Well, not my first, but my very first personal laptop. I actually had, and it's actually works. This thing is huge. If you could see the scale of this thing, I'm not gonna open it because it is falling apart. But it
Uh-huh.
was a Dell Inspiron E1100. If you want to Google it, and I got this in 2003, and I was only in sixth grade at the time, and I learned how to do even more crazier things. And those who are at home are watching this, this was the wireless LAN card right here, or as we now call it shortly, the Wi-Fi card. You had to buy your own card and put it in and know how to set it up. Nonetheless, that's how I got into computing hardcore, was just being exposed early to the internet and to computers and everything else, and just drawing my own destiny that then led me to go to college to become a software engineer full time. And in that exact same foray, I also learned how to create an ecosystem, which began as a video game club. And then over time, I created my own conference that everybody now knows as Render ATL.
Very, very cool. It's so funny because a lot of my friends, and I who got into tech, we got into tech because of early experiences that exposed us to the field. And I think when I even started my own career in tech, I was like, you know what? These the ability to be able to tinker with machines as early as like fifth, sixth, and seventh grade, I think really created my own pathway into the industry. Like I remember, very, very clearly like learning how to code on MySpace, right? And at the time, that was just like a cool thing to do. Like I
Yep.
didn't know the career I can go into. But it's just so important to really, note how early experiences like that can really shape, how you pursue a career or even pursue your passions. And so, thinking about where you are now, obviously Render ATL started some time ago and you've really grown the conference from scratch. And I really want to focus this episode on how you build a conference from scratch because truthfully, the show is focused on the sexy and unsexy parts of success. And as someone who's built something from scratch, I know that it takes a lot of work and effort to be able to ideate something and bring it to life. And so, can you tell me the same ways in which, that computer and being able to work with technology early on inspired you to go into tech? What experiences shaped you wanting to start Render ATL? And what gap did you see in tech conferences that you really wanted to fill?
Yeah. So the main reason why Render ATL became what it is now is because I found it incredibly weird where Atlanta has a major international airport, Hartsfield Jackson, and Hartsfield Jackson, busiest airport in the whole entire world, welcomes millions of people every single year. why do we have so much traffic, but we don't have any major technology event here? Where we do things like the Super Bowl happens here. We do things like the World Cup is about to happen here. But with us being a major hub, you would think it would be an opportunity for a major technology conference to just set up a shop. So I said, oh, well, I don't see that happening here. And ATL's number one export is culture. We have so much of it that we had to figure out a way to bundle it up and export it out. You got brands like Atlanta and influences everything. You got brands like East Side Golf and a slew of more that has figured out how to package up culture that is here and export it out to the rest of the world at this point, right? So I said, well, if other brands could do that, a render can too, or a technology conference can too. And I just happened to be a software engineer full time. And I said, well, let me focus on what I know best, which is engineering. I've been doing engineering from the early days, and I've been doing engineering as a full time employee since 2015. So I said, okay, engineering conference, culture here in ATL, let's make it happen. That right there was the equation that then almost brought us success. The only thing that we missed or only thing that we needed as a igniter was how do we get everybody here? How do you cut through the noise? And we didn't have an answer. And the answer sometimes comes to you when you don't go looking for it. And the answer was COVID, which sounds crazy, right? But when COVID happened, everybody else closed, with the only asterisk mark being Georgia. Georgia was open the whole time, open, loud, and proud for a business. So even though we were supposed to have our first conference May 2020, we end up having it in September 2021. And because of that, with Georgia being the only thing open, I think we didn't get vaccinated until April 2021. So it was a small a gap to have anything at all, right? We were the only conference happening in the whole country when it came to a tech. And as a result, all the noise I talked about earlier, we were able to cut through, not having to use ads, not having to use influencers, just or organic reach. And right place, right time. And because of that, like they say, the rest is history. We just took off.
Yeah. I don't want to underskirt what you're talking about, which is when timing and opportunity come together, really
Yep.
great things happen. You know what I'm saying? I think a lot of people who are creating things, who are building things, they're sometimes they get frustrated, right? Like the timing and the opportunity is not aligning. Like the opportunity might be there, but like the timing is off. They don't have
Correct.
the bandwidth, they don't have the capacity. And
Correct.
sometimes they have the capacity, but they don't have the networks and stuff like that, right? So in
Mhm.
your case, you had a situation where the preparedness was just there, right? And so the question I have for you is like, all right, so now, 2021 is here. You're building up the conference, right? You do the first set. It's now 2025 and the conference still has longevity, right? You guys still are growing every single year. So tell me, what have you learned year over year about building conferences that you think is leading to exponential growth from the 2021 to now 2025?
I think it's not a question around what did you learn for conferences, but what did I learn for business owners? And The biggest thing I learned is that momentum is a lot easier to keep versus to create. Um,
Mhm.
kind of like going back to, I'm gonna speak to all my nerds out there. The first law of physics is that an object at rest will remain at rest, right, until it's acted upon. And if you think about it like this, where momentum as a company is so hard to get. Like I said earlier, you gotta cut through all the noise to even get anybody to pay attention to create your first dollar. Once you got people paying attention, it would then behoove you to then lose that attention and then take some off time and then try to get that same momentum again. So the biggest takeaway I learned is once you have it up, you just keep on going, and you gotta innovate along the way. Because what will happen, kind of like what happened to Apple after Steve Jobs passed away, was you got Tim Cook in there as a strong operator. But the thing about Tim Cook is he's a good operator. He isn't a good visionary, right? And as a result of that, they lost the momentum because people only see them doing the same exact thing over and over and over again. So keep that momentum going because that's what you need ultimately to build a strong business.
Mm, that's actually really, really solid advice. And so I think what you're hinting at is just the importance of getting motion and keeping motion, right? And so when you think about momentum and motion, right, there's also a level of resiliency that you have to have in order to be able to keep that momentum, right?
Yep.
And you are also a practitioner. So you're not just the founder and CEO of Render ATL, you also are doing your own thing as a practitioner, which in my mind, right, also leads to better outcomes for the thing that you're building because you have insight into what folks are looking for when they're coming to the space, right? And so tell me, how are you finding the resilience to be able to balance the demands of your, full-time job and then everything that you're doing with Render ATL? Because for some folks, they haven't been able to master the time management, the mental capacity associated with being able to turn something that they're really passionate about into something sustainable.
Yeah. I think I was told a long time ago that it's almost like a fish that has been taken out of water.
Mhm.
Take a fish out of water. What is it going to do? It's going to gas for air. It's going to flounder all around. But ultimately, it comprehends that it needs to get back into the thing or it gets back into the water that will help it move forward. All right. It doesn't have any choice other than to get back into the water. It comprehends get back into the water or die, a period. And it is the same thing when it comes to running a business and having a full time job. It is extremely daunting, and it isn't for the weak minded, weak hearted, and most people will fail at it. But if you are passionate about your dream and you also know that you got bills to pay, that you cannot afford taking it out of the business, what you're gonna do? You're gonna be like the a fish that is out of water and needs to get back in and just operate. You're going to do what you have to do to make it to the next day. Will it always be a perfect? Will it always go right? No. But as long as you're 80% tracking towards the right way, 80% every single day is way better than 100% every single day. And what I mean by that is it's almost impossible to be 100% from the line every single day. Now there are those folks out there who kind of figured it out. Like you got your Elons of the world, you got your Steve Jobs of the world, you got your Larry Ellisons and your Bill Gates and your Elon. I mean your Mark Zuckerbergs of the world. These are like the 0.0001%, right? Where they comprehend there's 24 hours of the day, they're going to probably work 20 hours of the day. But it isn't long term sustainable for most people. So trying to hit 100% of every single shot, hard, right? And what's going to happen is if you try to go for 100 every single day, you're going to fail. You're going to get discouraged. When you get discouraged, you'll have a choice to make that either you're going to pick yourselves up and try it again, or you're going to go down a vicious cycle of negative thoughts, and it's just going to get worse. It's going to be 90%, 80%, 60. Or you could tell yourself, hey, man, I only got to do 80% of the things right today or close enough. And that will compound over time to where your 80% is better than most people's day.
Mm-hmm.
Compounding now. So you get 80% Monday, 80% Tuesday, 80% Wednesday, 80% Thursday. You've probably 10 times out of 10 did better than the guy or the girl over there that's only did 10% one day, 20% one day, or 0% the next day. And that's how you're able to now say, okay, I could do both. I just cannot give either my all. But there is going to come a point in time where you do have to choose one. It's impossible to always be in both houses. One of them will suffer, and you need to be okay with making that choice when the time comes.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Now, I really love that. And I think that this is a good segue to my next question, because I think that when you're building something, you're always presented with a myriad of choices, right? You know, where do you put your time? Where do you want to take something? What's the vision, etc.? And I think a lot of times when we think about tech conferences, they usually have had a face, right? And sometimes those faces were not like ours, right? I remember my attending my first ever meetup in New York City. It was a tech meetup, and I was like, wait, like, you know, where are the people that look like me here, right? And so when you think about, and this is, and let me also preface this by saying this is not to say that everyone shouldn't have access to technical communities, but I do think that when it comes to like Black and Brown folks, we have culture and we need technical skills, right? And we need these spaces for ourselves that honor our identities and honor our humanity. And so when you were building Render ATL, right, I think it was explicitly intentional on your behalf to really center culture. And you made that decision based on what I assume is your own experiences. Tell me why build specifically for underestimated communities in tech rather than trying to appease a broader audience that could maybe find the content equally as valuable.
Yeah. So the goal was never to build for underestimated ecosystems.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the goal was to just build the best damn conference or the best bit or the best damn business, and by the way, we just happen to be black. And then everybody said, "Oh shit, that's actually cool. That is
Mhm.
us doing it." Um, and a lot of people get that mixed up because a lot of folks are like, "Well, when I come to the event, it's obvious that is being put on by people of color. Music, the food, the smells, the sights, sound." And I'm like, yes, but it's almost like you gotta come to the thing, or you gotta actually be intentional, and then you could go seek that out. Um, so it's almost like if you go to any other business, whether it's like let's take for instance a Best Buy, right? Their goal is just to build the best damn electronics store for everything, right? But if you go there and you hear the music and you hear the sounds, or you see how they engage with you, you're like, ah, this was not built with us in mind, right? But when you build a diverse team like we did, where the majority of the team is a female, and we have everybody on the team, white, black, Latino, Asian, everything else in between, it makes your overall product better, right? Because you are looking for other advantage points that even I, as a person of color, might be missing because I happen to be a black male. And I'll give an example of that where we got a feedback in 2024 was, hey, as a female that comes to your conference, which the majority of our attendees are female, about 60 to 65%, all right? I want to feel more included when I go to the bathroom. And I said, interesting. I thought about that. So then I go to my team. Like I said, the majority of our team is a female. And I go to my leaders on the team and I'm like, hey, uh, what do they mean by this question? Or what do they mean by this answer? And it was, oh, we don't have any feminine hygiene products in any of the bathrooms at all. And I said, damn, I had never thought about that. It's an interesting vantage point. And when they told me this, I said, well, is that our responsibility to pay for that? Because it's a cost. Everything costs, right? And we went back and forth on it. And I commend them for holding their ground on, yes, if we want to be an inclusive conference, which our tagline is where talent feels welcome, we do gotta do this. I said, all right, cool. Let's make this happen then. So for 2025, all of the bathrooms had feminine hygiene products. And because of that, we looked at the exact same feedback and people applauded it and was like, oh my God, this is the only conference, a tech conference, auto conference, electronic conference, any conference. This is the only conference I've gone to that had enough of a thought a process to say, I should probably include a feminine hygiene products in the bathroom, a period. And it makes us look better, and it makes the attendee happy, and it makes the business even healthier because you're going to get more repeat customers, right? And that's only possible because, again, we began out with the intention of building the best of the damn business by having multiple advantage points, by you hiring across all cultures, races, religions, and creeds, and getting them to work hard and getting them to work with each other. Everything else that you see, how you identify it as, it could be a conference for Black folks, it could be a conference for multicultural folks, it could be a conference for just engineers, I've heard, is how you the consumer, takes it. But that tells us that we've done our job well because it makes you identify in an organic way that you see yourself here.
Mhm. Yeah, and Justin, I think that what you're talking about is really profound, right? Because I do think a lot of times when we're building things, folks do automatically, even me just now, right? I automatically assumed that you were building it specifically for us in the beginning stages. And what you're saying is like you set out to just build a really great product, and it just so happens that it attracted a certain kind of audience because of the kinds of team members that you brought on to help you along the journey.
Mhm.
And so the question I have for you, right, is around how do you make good decisions on building a team early on in order to be able to take advantage of those different vantage points, right? Because we're in an era right now where a lot of folks I think are struggling with understanding how to hire well, how
Mhm.
to identify talent. And I think that for many of us who are trying to operate businesses and build things from scratch, one of the things that we can fail to do early on is hire the right people. And so, what is your advice for those who are starting to build things, to be able to give them some frameworks on what they can be doing to bring in the right set of folks to help them ideate, but also launch the first iteration of their ideas?
Yeah. One, go back to what I said earlier. 80% is better than 100. So you only gotta be right or on your shit 80% of the time. Um, but understand well that you it's impossible to have all the answers the first time. It's impossible to be right most of the time. But what our company motto is, our internal people model is iterate fast, not change fast. Or you've heard of Silicon Valley, a phrase from a Facebook: move quickly and break things. We're like, whoa, no, 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 not move quickly and break things, but iterate fast. Period. And what we mean by that is take whatever you got, act upon it quickly, put it out there, get the feedback, and then try it again quickly, right? Iterate fast. And because we're iterating, if I were to say change fast, change would then mean I hope you got the right answer now. I'm telling you to iterate fast, meaning it's okay not to have the right answer, but we're gonna try again, and we're gonna try again, we're gonna try again, but we're gonna do them all quickly, a rapid succession after each other. Why I bring that up is because hiring will be the most difficult part of the journey, but it's the most needed part of the journey. Where having a strong team is what is going to hold you back from going from 0 to 100, 100 to 1,000, 1,000 to 5,000, 5,000 to 100,000, XYZ. You will get to a point where if you do not have a team, it will show. And you're going to have to make some bad judgment calls. You're going to have to hire folks that you think are great, but they turn out to be horrible. Hire folks who are great, but you in your own incompetency as a founder will hold them back and they will quit. Or you will hire a greatness and you will prematurely fire them. But all of that is a part of the learning game. And through all that, you will learn what you need as a founder to help grow and fuel your company. It's a game. It's a game truly that, like I said earlier, iterate fast. But just be taking notes on what you're iterating on as you're making these hires. And you got to go meet people where they're at. If you know the best engineers are hanging out on a Tuesday at the pub, have your ass down there on a Tuesday at 4 o'clock at the pub because you know what you need. You got to get off your ass until you have enough a brand clout for them to come hire you. I mean, for them to come want to apply to be hired, right? And also just have a realistic conversation with folks like, hey, I can't hire you full time. I might have to hire you as a contractor, right? I might have to hire you for only project needs. That's fine. But just be strong minded and understand well that who you hire as your A team, which is going to be great, will hire your a B team, and a B comes after A. So your a B team won't be as good as your A team, and then whoever hires and then whoever you have on your a B team, well, then hire your a C team, and a C comes after a B. So your a C team won't be as good as your B team, and your a C team is a 2 degrees of worse than your A team.
Mm.
So if you hire a strong A team and you put the a fear of a God in them, that they gotta hire a great B team, even though your B team isn't as good as your A team, they're good. And you put that exact same fear about God in your B team to hire your C team, even though they may be a 2 degrees worse than your A team, they're great. You know, what
Mhm.
happens often is A team hires a sloppy a B team hires a horrible C team, a C team hires an even horrible D team, and just continues on. And then the next thing you know, you got a horrible company of just bloat. You don't want it to happen. Hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I really appreciate that. As someone who is an operator, our team at AOT is 100 plus, including full time contractors and part time folks. And I think that probably for me was like one of the biggest learning lessons, especially early on.
Mhm.
We've been around now for 11 years, and I will definitely say the first set of employees we brought on were not the right team, right? And I don't think we actually mastered it until maybe year 2.5. I think we learned a lot in that first year. And I will say that that team that came after that, though, really helped us grow and scale.
Sure.
And I don't know that we added some fear on our A team to hire a good B team, but I think we created standards, right? And we created operating procedures that kind of forced their hand to make really good decisions on their hiring process. So I think that's
Yep.
what you're hinting at.
Yep.
And this, I think the same way, I think about teams, I also think about like partnerships, right? And one of the things that I find really interesting, especially when it comes to building partnerships, for our organization, for example, because we're tech focused and we are focused on underestimated communities, a lot of times folks wonder whether our students are quote unquote technical enough, right? Because they might not have like traditional backgrounds. And I remember, I have a friend who also runs a tech conference for Black and Brown people around the country. And, my friend was telling me like one of the biggest questions that she gets from employers is your conference technical enough to sponsor? And so the same ways in which you are convicted about hiring your team, right? I'm curious to know how you operate with that same level of conviction to not only build your team, but also build the right partnership so that folks who are experiencing your product can actually feel the impact that you're trying to make. Because sometimes I think from the outside looking in, folks don't always get a clear vision on how we operate until they're in the door. And so, curious to know if you want to shed any light on that.
Um, there's a couple of layers, so I'll be a brief on this, which is gotta have a good story. There is no substitute to that. Um, a good founder story, like what is your why,
Mhm.
so that not just the brands but the people will follow you. You got to also be able to articulate well what makes you different, and what is creating this critical mass of a following that you have. Um, I feel like at a time conferences just got the cool thing to do, and a lot of people lost the plot, or they just got sideways with a true what the true premise of a conference is, right? So as a result of that, they didn't have a good story. They did not have a good why. their thing is different. With those two things alone, you could get the right people in the door or the people that want to be there. Don't ever go chase a dollar for a person that you got to overly convince, because when you overly convince them, likelihood of them even having a good time is exponentially low. And like, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say you don't want to sell anybody. That is just a part of the game. But you know who I'm talking about. It is those uh, attendees or those sponsors or those customers, I should just say, that truly are only there because their boss told them to come. You don't want that kind of a customer. You want the kind of a customer that I've been able to attract that is passionate about being there year over year, because they believe in not just the story and the mission of the brand, but the story and the mission of your why. Why am I here? It's the exact same thing about why people buy a particular ice cream, like a Ben and Jerry's. I identify with the founder, and I identify with the brand. And as long as your customer, whether it's B2C or B2B, can I identify with both, you'll always be able to close a deal.
Mhm. Yes, I actually really, really love that. And so, speaking about it, I think we're starting to talk a little bit about like business models and like product development, right? I'm curious to know, with Render now being around for like 4.5 years, I'm gonna say like 4 years, 5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you think about the next 5 years, what are some things you want to introduce to the conference, and introduce to the community in general that hasn't yet existed that you think has to exist because of the moment in time that we're in, and the evolution of how technology is really changing rapidly. Even when you think about the uses of AI and automation, robotic processes that are starting to take over, what are some things that you think are going to come down the pipeline that people can look forward to?
I can't tell you everything. A TBD.
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 Okay. I feel like you like I signed the NDA.
Basically.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, then, Justin, when you think about folks who might be listening to this interview who have really followed your journey, and they're really looking for some inspiration, what pieces of advice would you give them about what it takes to build something meaningful for the future if they don't know where to start?
You just got to go do it. You have the idea in your head. Keep on putting it off. You're scared to go try it. You're scared to go commit. Just go commit, try it, learn from anything that has happened, a positive or a negative, and just try it again. I think that is the most told tale of just how did you be so successful. It's just you gotta try. And a lot of folks be like question mark, like what? And you're like, whoa, like that's the answer. There's a ton of things that is in the render office or in the out in the wild that we've tried and it ain't like a go over hot, but we learned and we tried again and we tweaked and make it better. um, I like to embody the quote that an overnight success is years in the making. It's just by the time you have seen it, it was overnight. And the easiest way to eat an elephant is a bite at a time. So I know there's going to be whoever are listening and just say, well, it seems so easy just to go try it, but you got to do this and do that and do that. Yes. It's true. I'm here to tell you. I'm not here to hold your hand and bullshit you about it's going to be hard. It is going to be hard. And if you think it's going to be too hard, I don't try. That's just the honest thing. Is if you think it's going to be hard, quit. I get a job. That's fine. 9 to 5. I need to hire folks who want to do a 9 to 5. I need to hire contractors. That's fine. But if you want to come over onto the ownership side, where you got to build everything from scratch, is it going to be hard? It's going to be lots of uncertainty. It's going to be lots of things you got to figure out. But with all those things you got to do, internalize and don't forget that the easiest way to eat an elephant is a bite at a time. And to quote Nelson Mandela, everything seems impossible until it is finished.
Yes, I love that. Everything seems impossible until it is finished, and that is a real gem. So, Justin, just you blessed us with so much information today. I want to thank you again for generously just talking to us, sharing your story and also, the vision that you have for where you're trying to go and where you're trying to take under ATL. So, where can people connect with you and find you? And do you have any final words for our listeners?
Yeah, so one, thank you for having me. Kudos to you for taking the time to interview people who you don't even know they're gonna hit you back. Like a shout out to you because you emailed me cold and you hit me up again. And I said, oh hey, so it goes back to you got to be resilient, which is a trait that you are shown when you hit me up multiple times. For those who are out there listening on anything that you are listening, or if you are watching on this, just again, try and try again. And then for those who, like myself, might be speech impaired, just know that your voice matters and you could truly do anything. It's just might take us longer to get the words out. It might be a little bit more effort you got to do on controlling your voice and honing your voice, but it is possible and you could do anything. Don't let anybody tell you that your voice doesn't matter. You can really achieve it, and you can be up there too, giving speeches and everything else. If you would like to follow me, you could go on Instagram, Twitter, or how the new kids call it, X. Um, and my handle is a thug, THUG, D Bugger, DEBUGGER, or on LinkedIn, Justin E. Samuels, or just go on a conference. It's just across all platforms, Render ATL. But I thank you again for having me.
Of course, this has been such a fun episode, and I hope that all of you listening today got something special out of it. I know that I sure did, and I hope that it inspires you. Make sure
Thank you.
that you follow us and leave a rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and subscribe to our YouTube and follow us on social media. Until next week, everybody. Mwah. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Behind the Work. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure that you subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and follow us on social media. I'm really looking forward to seeing and hearing how this show is leaving an impact on you.